Hi, everybody. This is 9 to 5 Nightmares. I'm Amy Warren.
And I'm Micole Garatti.
And today we've got really great stories to tell everyone. I think we're going to start out with the court case because regulation always affects all of us. So we want to know about that first. And then we're going to talk about our friend's star, Matthew Perry. So, and how that actually connects to workplace misconduct. So, first of all, Micole, this court case is big. For those of
Yeah,
you who may not be paying attention to this, a employer was found liable for what employees were doing not during work time and on a social media platform. So,
right.
Micole, give us some of the details of this because I know that you just wrote an awesome blog piece on this for Fama, which we're going to share with everyone too in the
Yes.
comment section.
Yeah. So, okay, I might butcher the name. Okay, in Okanowski v. Garland, I think I got that right. Any employment lawyers down in the comments, let me know if I butchered that. Okay, so the Ninth Circuit just recently ruled that in this case, employers can be held liable for workplace misconduct that is committed on personal employee social media channels off work hours. And what's so important is that this actually expands the definition of what is considered workplace misconduct and workplace harassment and what employers can be held liable for. And it does so. It's the first ruling or one of the first rulings on this that will change the EEOC directions on this moving forward.
And I
So
think
it's big.
and what's so interesting about this for everyone to really understand, number one, this is not happening during work time. Number two, this does
Yeah,
not even include any workplace equipment, any workplace
right.
communications, any workplace platforms.
No
So
accounts, nothing. It was personal
nothing.
channels, right?
It's all personal. The connection is the fact that the people know each other through the workplace,
Yeah,
and that also, I think the connection in this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that the employee brought it to the employer's attention, asking
the
for
victim,
help,
yeah.
and the employer refused, saying they weren't obligated because it wasn't happening during work time at the workplace or involving anything that had to do with workplace platforms, workplace hardware, none of that.
Right, right. Yeah,
So,
so I'll talk a little bit about the case too. So specifically in this case, the employer is the Federal Bureau of Prisons, hence the V. Garland is with the Justice Department because that is the
yeah.
employer. And what happened was a male supervisor was, and I don't even think it was the direct supervisor of the employee of the victim, but a supervisor at the Bureau of Prisons was making sexual advances toward the victim and the prosecutor in this case, and she was declining it. And so he went on social media and had like a public group, like with a bunch of coworkers, like sharing posts that were clearly directed to this woman and other women at the prison, saying really horrific things like basically that they were going to gang rape her and like really just
Oh,
like really targeted. Yeah, they didn't even specifically mention her, but it was so targeted that she knew it was about her. She felt very unsafe both
well, the
at work
courts
and
found
at
that it
home.
was about
Yeah,
her. So it doesn't
right,
like,
true. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right.
Right, which is part of how expansive this new court finding is as well. And
Mhm.
so she felt very unsafe at work, rightfully so. Like nobody wants their coworkers posting things about them like that. That's horrific. And so then she, like you said earlier, she went to HR and was like, "Hey, this like I don't want to work with this guy anymore. He's really making me uncomfortable and unsafe at work and at home." And they were like, we can't really do anything about it. It's his own channel. Well, that's not really going to fly anymore because the court found that not to be the case. So this is just a major step moving forward that like what we do and who we are and how we behave offline publicly still because it was found on public
Well,
social media
well,
channels.
online, but
Right.
during offline time.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like it still matters. It's you can't go and harass and make violent comments about your coworkers and then show up to work like everything's fine. That's not okay and it's never been okay. But now the courts are also agreeing that it's
Well,
not
and
okay.
I think the bigger thing in this is, there's a difference between personal liability, also employer liability.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So in this case, the fact that the employer is liable, this is where everybody out there who is in HR,
Right.
you need to go today. You need to pull up the Fama blog post. You need to get this court case. You need to go in and have a quick chat
Right.
with your employment attorney and make sure that your code of conduct is updated. Make sure that your hiring managers and your managers in general know about this. Um,
Right.
and we can't provide legal advice here, and we're not attorneys. You've got
No.
to get your own legal counsel, but start having conversations about this and make sure that you're taking this court case into consideration as you're thinking about how everybody is working together at your workplace,
Right.
because the exposure is now greater. And
Right.
we talk about this all the time. Like, this is what we do at FOM on a regular basis. Like, this is where we spend our time. This is why we do what we're doing today.
Right.
And we not only screen people's online content for hiring, but we also do it once they've been employed, right? So,
Yeah.
this is not a one and done thing. This is something that you have to now have constant vigilance on. And this court
Right.
case is a direct example of this, and it's not going to go away. One of the things that we've been following is over the next 5 years, 75% of the workplace is going to be digital natives. We may have been
Yeah.
talking about this, we've been talking about this a lot. And digital natives, for those of you who don't know, these are people who were born and the internet was here. So, for those of us who remember the start of the internet, 75% of the workplace has no frame of reference for the start of the internet. Their lives have been lived publicly online for their whole entire life, from their parents to their own personal footprint. And this is just going to continue to expand and expand and expand in terms of what people's liability is, when, where, and how when it comes to online content. So,
Yeah. And to add on to what you just said, this ruling is aligned with, we've seen a lot more like customers asking us to rescreen. So that's something that we've been hearing more and more about too, is like traditionally we have sat more in talent acquisition, working like that background check at that stage of the process. But now there have been so many recent events between lately, like the rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. There have been so many events in the news that have led to extremism, more extremism than what we've seen. And this ruling just solidified like a lot for a lot of employers, especially our customers, that, we maybe it's time to, implement rescreening processes. And maybe it's time to like just check in at major events or milestones just to make sure that people are still they're okay and not engaging in any of this critical
yeah,
online
we
misconduct
had a
too.
we had a lot go on. That's a good point. When the October events and all of the anti-Semitism happened, we had a lot of people that were either rescreening or screening employees for the first time.
Yeah.
The other event too that's been interesting, that has had a lot of impact, was the assassination attempt, and
Yeah.
how people were making comments about that, and publicly losing their employment over that. So, you know, there's been a lot of events lately that have been
Yeah.
triggering behaviors that employers do not want to be associated with. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we'll link the rescreening article that we just published in the show notes too. So definitely check that out as well.
Yeah. And so now moving on from this to our friends. So, unfortunately, everyone has probably been made aware of the untimely passing of Matthew Perry. And what's recently come of this in the last 2, 3 weeks ish, probably 2 weeks, is a big investigation on how he was acquiring the substances and all of these different things that have been going on. And there have also been um new kind of implications for workplaces as in the healthcare industry because of this. So Micole, talk about this a little bit. What is going on here in terms of
Yeah.
who was implicated and how this aligns with workplace misconduct?
Yeah. So what was interesting was that Matthew Perry was very publicly, for many, many years, addicted to, like, had substance abuse issues. He went through a sobriety, and he was also very publicly really proud of the sobriety that he had achieved. And when he passed away, they found it was a drug overdose, which was very confusing and heartbreaking to a lot of people because he was very publicly sober, and a lot of, like, very publicly sober, and that was something he was really, really proud of. And so, and after an investigation, it was recently found that he was going through I think it was ketamine treatments, which he was under doctor's orders going through it. It wasn't something that he was abusing on his own. And what they later found out was that apparently ketamine treatments are standard in certain situations, like medical situations, but the doses and amount of the treatments that he was getting from these doctors was clear misconduct. It was so inappropriate and so outrageous. And when doctors and healthcare professionals actually took a look at, like, the amounts he was given, the dosage he was given, the amount of times that he was given treatment, it was wildly, like, they some of the articles that I was reading was basically they just wanted to squeeze him for money, and it ended up killing him, unfortunately. And so it's just so heartbreaking because he was so proud of doing the right thing, and then he was under care of people that were not only just using him for money, but doing it in a way that actually, like, it murdered him. And so now two doctors are actually going, like, found, or they're being investigated and hopefully indicted, maybe charged. I'm not sure where they are in the legal process at the time that we're recording this, but there was definitely misconduct going on, and it's
Yeah.
so
It's
heartbreaking.
horrible, and it was 2 doctors and a nurse, and so,
Yeah,
you know, this is not, unfortunately, the first time that there have been stories where doctors and nurses have abused their prescription powers and things like that. Um, you know, this is unfortunately a pro
I think you're
as a
frozen.
money-making right? Am I coming back?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Alright, I'm back. Sorry, everybody. So we've been laughing. We've had horrible internet connections for the last 2 weeks. So they actually replaced my internet line, and Micole's fiber line was cut yesterday. So now we're back, we'll get back into it. So what I was saying was this is just not the first time that doctors are going to abuse their prescribing powers or nurses are going to abuse their prescribing powers to make money,
Right.
and it's unfortunate that we're hearing about it again in such a public way because it was attached to someone who has a very like high public profile. Like we know about this because, um, you know, over the course of the last few years, we screen a lot of healthcare workers,
Yeah.
and we actually screened a doctor who we found was selling body parts on one of the major social media platforms, and it was out
Publicly.
there publicly for everybody to see. This was legit. This was not something that was a ruse or anything like that. And we were able to surface that to the employer to let them know. And usually when we do that, then the employer, notifies the authorities, and the authorities get involved in all those kinds of things, because, we've got the ability to, uncover every rock, right? No stone left unturned when we're going through and we're looking for misconduct. And believe it or not, people had not found this. And he was actively engaged in this
Uh,
transaction. So,
Yucky. I can't imagine like doing that and like feeling good about it. But like I'm not the one committing this egregious act of gross
oh
misconduct.
wait, there's even a line here where anybody would feel good about selling body parts.
Like I guess I don't know. Like I don't I'm not actively out here committing misconduct, but like I can't I
To each
it's
his own, Micole. Like, somebody thought it was a good idea. And you know what it is? Like, why is it anything to make a buck, right? I mean, think about
that's
this.
fair.
And,
That
like,
not everyone has integrity.
no. So, I mean, these are some of the things. It's like, it's still the wild, wild west out there,
Yeah,
surprisingly enough. And you would think this day and age that, you know, people would not be, just essentially blowing their lives up online and sharing everything publicly, but they do.
they
And,
do.
it's our job to make sure that the people that aren't behaving well, whether it's the guards at the prison who are engaged in horrific sexual misconduct and harassment, right?
Yeah.
Or oh, and now we have an alarm. Sorry, everybody. This is like this is the interesting day during this podcast. You can tell we're still like a little bit new at this. So like it's it's amazing to me that this day and age we still have these kinds of stories that we're talking about. And now we also have the connection to, as an employer, you're liable for this behavior if it's involving people that are in your workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of 9 to 5 Nightmares. We will catch everybody in the next episode with more interesting, wild workplace misconduct stories. Thanks, Micole.
Thanks, Amy.